Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck, and our show today is A Woman's Prerogative Part 2. And we are super excited to talk about women and educational inequality. Joining me is the star of our show. It's Monday here in the United States for me, and it's Tuesday in New Zealand for Mariska. Let's welcome her to the program. Hello.
Hello, and it is also one of those rare occasions where you are finding yourself in July and I am finding myself in August.
Oh, that's right. You're in August already. How is August over there in New Zealand?
August are turning out to be a really lovely month. Well, so far. I've had one day of it, so we'll see how it goes.
And you're in winter and we're in summer.
Yes. I am in winter, although I have to say the trees do not think so. They are starting to show signs of life and developing their little leaves and all the rest of it. So I'm hoping that they keep it in for a little while longer, because I suspect we might have a few cold snaps yet. And preferably, they should only push their leaves out after that's happened.
I love it. I love it. So we're going to get started on our topic. And while you're talking, I'm going to go and grab our books, because I think it's really important to talk about education for children as well. So as we think about educational inequality, I'd like to start off with how important is a formal education to you, Mariska? And if it is or isn't, please give us some backstory about why.
Ooh, formal education. Well, for those of you that don't know me, my background is in engineering. Now, we do not become engineers by sitting on a couch and not learning anything. So formal education for me, fairly important. I have also done my master's in management, so within the leadership space, and continuously learning, reading up on new research, and anything that's coming up that we are discovering about ourselves, about human beings. So education, whether it is a formal education or whether it is stuff that we learn from doing it, both are very, very important. One of the things that I found quite interesting for myself was while we were busy in our engineering course, one of our lecturers explained the concept of how a coal-fired boiler works. And the way that he explained it, well, sort of looked like it made sense on the board. I mean, he drew a couple of pictures and tried to explain as best he could as to what was happening and why what we were learning was so important and how it was applicable. And then I had the privilege to actually go to a coal-fired power station, and one of the biggest at that stage in the Southern Hemisphere. So going to it and actually experiencing it for myself, being on the plant and seeing the scale of things, seeing how it looks like inside the boiler. So we were able to have it's smallish little windows that you can open, not a glass window, it's a steel plate, basically, that covers the external wall of the boiler, that you can open up and take a little peek through it, and you can see the fireball on the inside of the boiler. So the way that he explained it, and I know that there's older, smaller boilers that work that way, is a bed of coal at the bottom, and it actually go past and the heat rises and all the rest of the fun stuff that happens. So in this boiler, the coal was pulverized, so it's like baby powder, and they blow it into the center of the boiler and it forms a ball of fire. Literally, it is a round ball of fire, and then depending on where they are blowing the coal from, they can move the ball up and down. So to me, that was fascinating. I was absolutely in awe and so fascinated by how all of this works, and understanding, really getting that appreciation for what I was learning in school and at the university around the mathematics, the science behind it, and then going and in practice seeing how it works. So I have an appreciation for both ways of doing it, and I think they complement each other really well. It is good for us to understand some of the theoretical pieces of things, and then also to test stuff out for ourselves and see how they physically manifest in our world and how they look like. And whether this is from an engineering point of view or whether this is from a leadership point of view, human beings are even more integrate. Dr. Jacalyn, that word is absolutely stumping my mouth at the moment. So for humans, even more important that we not only take the learning that we get from our books, also take the learning that we get from life and experiment with ourselves. We are our own best place to experiment with. So education, definitely a top thing in my books. And as Dr. Jacalyn mentioned a little bit earlier on, education for children. So Dr. Jacalyn, do you have those books ready?
I do. I sure have them ready. And what I wanted to share about the books is, if you think about the power of listening, elevated listening, okay, I have formal education, you have formal education. I was never taught how to listen. There was never an English class that said, let's talk about listening skills, and none of the listening skills that we actually go into. So you and I and Dr. Chan, in some cases, put together these children's books to help children. I'm just going to spotlight myself for a second, to help children and their families learn how to listen at an elevated level. And the thing that's so interesting, I think, about the concept is that all of the animal characters on the book actually represent real people who took the power of listening. So, for example, let me find, here's Diane Floyd Bain, and she's the seal, Eve the seal, in the book. So you can learn about Diane and what she does, and her links are in here. And then she's one of the main characters in the story. So this is not formal education, right? But this is education in and of itself, to teach people how to learn how to listen. So Mariska, thank you for sharing about your education journey. You're obviously highly educated, and I knew what your answer was going to be when I asked you about that. I am also someone who believes in formal education and have a master's and a doctorate. And of course, we're both certified coaches. You have more certifications than I do. But yeah, I think it's important. And at the same time, I think it's important to provide education through other mediums. So if somebody can't afford to go to a university, there are other ways to get educated, whether it's through courses or books or mentorship. So what are your thoughts about other avenues to get education if you're not able to afford a formal education?
Well, first off, I would suggest to be as curious as possible. I think curiosity is the best way to learn. And if we utilize curiosity to our advantage, we can literally learn from anything, anywhere. We can learn from nature. We can learn from reading books. We can learn from other people. We can learn from observing other people. So there's so many different ways in order for us to learn. And the only person holding us back is ourselves, literally. We can overcome anything that we want to overcome if we decide to do that. And as I mentioned, whether it be through reading, so for reading, yes, we will need to learn how to read. We also need to learn how to read in maybe different languages. Now, to learn a different language, we don't know. We don't need to know how to read to learn a different language. So to learn a different language, we literally just need to speak to a person that speaks that language and, well, do it enough times so that we can learn the language. So thinking about what it is that we want to learn, and then being intentional about, well, okay, so how am I going to do that? How will I take myself from where I am at the moment and get to the place where I want to be and see what is the steps that would get me there? So being very intentional about the learning that we're going through. I think that sometimes, for me, people have, as a general rule, we have this thing about, yeah, but I need to be able to do this or do that or do the next thing in order to be successful. Really, you don't. You need you to be successful. And you already have you. So all you need to change is, well, the way that you think about how you define success possibly and how you approach it. And then go for it. So learning from your environment, we can all do that, and we constantly do that. I mean, little children that literally do not know how to read still learn how to walk and talk, and for the most part, take care of themselves. So absolutely getting our learning from our environment and really being curious. I think that's the thing. That's the key of it. If we are curious, if we're really curious about something, we will find a way to learn it. Be it getting a mentor, be it getting somebody that already did this thing before and we can talk to them about it, be it learning how to read so that we can read more material about it. Whatever the case might be, curiosity, I would say, is the key. What do you think, Dr. Jacalyn? What's your thoughts on this?
I love curiosity. Absolutely. I'm a big fan of wanting to know more. In fact, I don't even know if I shared this with you, but I wanted to update our website, usaglobaltv.com, and also drjacalyn.com. And I have 3 other websites that are offshoots of that. So I got some prices, $10,000, $15,000 to do it. So I did it myself. And that was $10,000 or $15,000 for each one. And I did the whole thing myself. So I spent a weekend just focused on the websites, and I really enjoyed it. I know many people don't enjoy doing websites, but I've learned how to be a graphic artist, how to be a broadcast engineer. I mean, so many different hats because I'm curious and I want to learn. So yeah, so that interests me. Now, some other people, even on our team, they're just like, yeah, I don't want to do my website. I don't want to do graphic artwork. I don't want to do any of it. But for me, I really enjoy it. What are some things that you enjoy that, from being an engineer and then expanding? Obviously, you are an Amazon bestselling author. You are an expert presenter in Talking Heads. You have your own podcast, and then you just got your most recent certification for your coaching business. So tell us about some of these things that you've done and how you feel about them.
Well, I think for me, curiosity definitely plays a big role. And one of the things that I really enjoy personally is being creative and innovative. So seeing how the base building blocks of things work. So being able to understand the thing enough in order to break it down into its smallest components. So from a chemistry point of view, literally taking the elements and then seeing, okay, these are the different elements. And if I put these 2 together, I will get water. And if I take these 2 and I put them together, I get air, whatever the case might be. So understanding those base elements for me is a way of processing the world around me and processing, well, everything, life. because I then take that and be creative. I build new things or look at things a different way. And that really excites me. It's very, very exciting just to think about a project where I am able to do that. And I think for me, it's also one of the places where I really enjoy working with my clients. So as I work with people going through a transition, so either from a specialization into leadership or higher into their leadership space, those are all areas where we can utilize some of the stuff that we used to do really well in one area, tweak it a little bit, look at the base building blocks of it, and then rejig it and use it a little bit different in a different area. And Dr. Jacalyn, to your point around listening, it's fascinating. I know that the books are for children. It's fascinating how few adults understand how to do that. Listening is such a key skill. Listening to other people, listening to ourselves. We so often don't do that. We don't listen to ourselves. And we don't find those things that we are really drawn to. So when I'm thinking about being creative and being innovative, my curiosity goes in those areas. So whenever I see something, not necessarily a shiny new thing, it can be an old idea. It can be something. I have a couple of books that I have reread quite a few times. And every time I reread the book, I find new things in it because the way I think changed and the way I perceive and make sense of the world changed. And because of that, the way then that I read the book and understand some of the concepts would change. So really understanding what works really well for us as a being is very important to then be able to go out into the world and create the thing that we are on this planet to create and take that responsibility, because yes, it is a responsibility to make something of yourself. It's no one else's responsibility, it is yours. So taking that responsibility and going out and doing something with it, that is awe-inspiring. Like Dr. Jacalyn is doing with this platform. It is awe-inspiring, and she has learned how to be a broadcast engineer, Dr. Jacalyn, as you mentioned earlier, as well as all the other fun stuff that goes with being able to have this platform run the way it runs. There's so many things that goes into it. And to the same point, for somebody that doesn't have a passion in developing all of those different skill sets, you might be brilliant at some other place or some other area. Tap into that and be brilliant there. We all have brilliance. We only need to open it up and let it out. And sometimes we do, and sometimes we don't. And sometimes we let other people dictate what we do or don't, which typically is not the best idea. So, Dr. Jacalyn, what have you found within your educational space really draws you?
You know, it's interesting. I was just thinking about what you shared. I was in corporate up until March 6th of 2020, as you well know, because you helped me figure out a plan to leave. And when I was in corporate, I never felt really confident about my abilities as a business person because I really felt like I was a salesperson. And now, not only am I the producer and the founder of this platform and all the other things that I do, but I'm also an entrepreneur. So I have to put on my entrepreneurial hat about how to keep the business running and then how to grow the business, et cetera. And I'm actually drawing on my education as well as my experience in corporate. So all of those things coming together led me to where I am today. So I'm really grateful for that journey.
Yeah. It's interesting how when we look at, I remember when I was little, I always looked at my dad and thought, I want to be able to tell stories the way he tells stories one day, because it just felt like he had all these great experiences in life, and he would tell about the time that him and his brothers took my granddad's car, which they weren't supposed to do, and they snuck it out of the yard and then went to town, came back, and I think apparently scratched it or damaged the door. Of course, it was none of them when he found out about it. But they had all these adventures, and I thought, oh man, I wish I was able to have such adventures and be able to tell stories like that. Not realizing at that stage, being 7 years old, that, well, I was 7 years old and I only had 7 years worth of experience on the planet thus far. So my adventures only just started. And his adventures were a little bit further along. So understanding where we are at and not taking what we're learning and where we are in life and comparing it to other people, regardless of who the other people might be. It might be even people that's the same age as us. But they have different experiences than we do. They have different things that they go through. They have different things that they learn. And we all learn differently. I mean, I know I learned by really understanding the whole thing and then dissecting it and putting it back together again. That, to me, that works. That's learning. For other people, that doesn't work at all. I confuse them totally if I try to explain it to them that way. So understanding what works for us, I think, is very important. And Dr. Jacalyn, to your point, also then taking those experiences we had earlier on, so the experiences we had in corporate, the learning we had within the sales team, the time that you went to, I don't know, take an art class, whatever the case might be, and take all of those experiences and have this epic blend in a space that we really want to excel in. And it really doesn't feel like work when we get it right. So Dr. Jacalyn, I know you have between 30 and 40 shows a week on the platform, and it feels like you never sleep. I really don't honestly know when it is that you rest. And I always see you invigorated about the work you do. How do you do that? How do you keep doing that?
Thank you for saying that. You know, it is my passion. I absolutely love every part of what I'm doing, and I also had to learn how to use iMovie, how to make commercials, how to do editing. Editing I don't love as much because you're literally second by second that you have to, but it's fun when I put together a commercial or we have a great show or we produce an amazing book. I mean, all these things to me are just so much fun that I just am grateful to have this opportunity. And the other thing is, because I work 80 to 90 hours a week, I have no social life. So my friends are here on this platform. So my friends like you and Diane and Red and Jenetta and Madalene and Caroline and so many others, I really consider you to be friends as well as clients. And together we're all growing, because if you think about where we were when we first started with Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn to where we are today, and where we're going with this partnership with E360 and then also USA Globally Royally Rich TV, it's amazing.
It is amazing. It is amazing. As you were talking, you actually reminded me of one of your very, very early interviews as Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn. And it wasn't a visual medium at the time. It was literally radio. I'm hoping that it is not available because it was really early on. And I remember you interviewed me, and it was a phone interview. There was a little bit of a lag. Sound quality might not have been perfect. So from that to where we are today is, it is mind-blowing just to think about it.
And you know what, Mariska, you know what's so interesting, I think, of course, how you and I met taking the training to get certified for ICF. how we met, how we connected, what was going on, and then having a radio show, and the radio station promised certain things that weren't delivered and kind of just disappeared. And I was on my own with the broadcast engineer, and he was working with me to do that. We had one show, which was called Stories of Hope, Inspiration, Overcoming Adversity. And then because they didn't deliver what they said they would, I ended up making another arrangement, and that expanded the platform on the radio. And then I saw somebody was doing a Facebook Live and a YouTube Live. So I reached out to them, and I found out they had a producer. So I hired the producer. Then I learned how to do what the producer was doing. Then I learned how to do what the broadcast engineer was doing, and then put it all together. Because when it comes to education, I remember my dad said this. I worked for my dad and my uncle when I first started out. My dad said, you really need to know what's going on in all the departments, because if you don't know, first of all, you can be ripped off, right? You could possibly have your business hijacked, who knows? But you never know when you're going to be the one that has to go there and do that work. Because sometimes, especially when you have your own business, there's no backup plan. There's no backup employees. There's nobody waiting on the sidelines to jump in, and you might have to jump in yourself. So now that I know all the aspects of the business, it's enabled me to hire other people to do various things so that I don't have to do them.
Yeah. Yeah. It also gives us an appreciation, I think, of what goes into it. I'm sure when you do some of the creative work and do some of the editing, which isn't your fondest thing to do, when you get a person that does great editing, you have a deeper appreciation for what they're doing and how the product comes to you when you receive it, because you've done it before. Whereas when we don't really have a deeper appreciation for the thing, it's almost like it's a taken for granted element to it. There's not as much appreciation for exactly the effort and the expertise that goes into that specific thing. And I think from a leadership perspective, that is a valuable lesson for all of us. I'm not saying that we need to, as a leader, know exactly the nitty-gritties, but we definitely need to be there in the middle of the night when the guys are, I don't know, doing a breakdown. So we know how yucky it is to be in a winter open plain trying to fix something in the middle of the night. It's not fun. They are not having fun, even though it's their chosen occupation. They're not having fun. And us laying in a nice warm bed, we don't necessarily appreciate what they're going through. So having some appreciation for what it is that the person does, absolutely. And Dr. Jacalyn, to your point, it also helps in the business world, because you never know when you need to step in, especially when you're an entrepreneur.
So true. Excellent points. What are some of the challenges that you found that have been educational for you on your journey as an entrepreneur?
Oh, I think for me, well, the multiple hats. So we need to, as an entrepreneurs, understand the marketing and the sales and the business, whatever the thing is, the product or service that we provide. We need to understand that. We need to understand the financial pieces. And then, of course, there's all the other intricacies within each one, right? So if we think about the financials, actually being able to make our books make sense, preferably, so that we don't do creative accounting. That's not great. And as well as within the marketing and sales elements, understanding what works really well, what doesn't work well, what works within our industry, what works within our space that we are operating in, and understanding that better, being able to define that better. And I think to a degree, it also, I know, especially when I just started out, everybody kept saying, it's all about your niche. It's all about your niche. And I got so fed up with it at a stage. It's like, yeah, whatever. I really don't want to hear it anymore. It's almost like a favorite saying. And understanding it different. So getting to the person that could actually explain it to me in a way where it was like, okay, so the importance behind it is in order for me to be able to say, okay, all the people with the red shirts, you know who you are. Great. This way, please. So being able to understand what it was, the base thing that I was trying to do, again, to the point of breaking it down into its base elements, I want to really understand the basics that it is built up from. So for me, some of the things really took some time to understand and get around before I could actually do them properly. I am not the type of person that just goes, oh, thank you, this is the script. Great, I'll just use that. I might use it the first time, feel like a robot, and then rewrite said script after I have figured out exactly why and how we are supposed to be doing that. So it applies to me. So yes, that I would say has been my biggest learning curve, and it happens in all the areas of business for me personally, and it is a continuous learning journey. I don't think any person that is an entrepreneur ever stops learning. I don't think they do, no matter how small and or big the company is, because throughout each stage, there's something new to learn. And I don't know about you, Dr. Jacalyn, what was your experience like? Or what is your experience like, actually?
Well, yeah, my experience is the same, really. And I also wanted to parlay it into the fact that you and I are both talking heads. I did my first talking heads episode in a year, I think last week. So I'm excited to get back on there. But I found being able to provide education like that through the talking heads episode was really good for me as well. And it reinforces a lot of things. And then, of course, you're putting content out there that's out there forever for people to look at. It's a great repository of information. What has been your experience about providing education on television?
Ooh, wow. Sometimes nerve-wracking, especially initially because, well, wasn't used to this whole live thing. And I think for me, to a degree, there's also learning from teaching. So helping others understand a concept or an idea or a way of thinking helps me to dissect and rebuild the thing properly, because I know that I really understand something when I teach it to someone else or when I need to explain it to someone else. And that helps my understanding within that specific space. So that, to me, when I am doing a talking heads, it's not only about the sharing of the information with other people and helping them to learn and teach them the brilliance that is out there. It is also around my own understanding and seeing what there is that how else we can sort of put these things together. As I mentioned earlier with the marketing thing, I mean, if it wasn't literally for that person saying, well, red shirt, it's sort of a good indication for them to know it is them, and for me to be able to say, yep, you've got a red shirt, you sound like it. It helps to have those different perspectives, because we never know which one is the one that's going to land. And being able to give it from that point of view might help somebody else put a few dots together that they didn't do before. So that's really, for me, very exciting. And of course, as a presenter on Talking Heads, even on this platform, so even for a women's prerogative, I think one of the things for me really is around understanding that, I mean, one, this is not pre-recorded. So anybody that wants to join us on USA Global TV, something that you need to be aware of upfront, if you were to say too many ers in your sentence, we cannot cut it out for you. because it's literally live. Sorry about that. So it also helps us to learn how to not do that. Being able to present properly, being able to be very familiar with the content that we have, with the things that we are putting out, or the topic that we are teaching. I think that to me gave me a deeper appreciation for what it is that I'm doing and how I am doing it and how I am creating content in the world, where I am not going to rewrite the whole thing 20 times on a piece of paper and then only have my, I don't know, 5-line blog post or whatever it is that I'm creating. Literally, I need to make sure that I have my content. I know exactly what it is that I want to talk about, and come on, talking heads, and do that without sounding like a robot, because, well, we don't want to be reading off a piece of paper and sound like a robot. So it needs to be conversational as well, and understanding what the intention is of what it is that we're doing. So I don't know, Dr. Jacalyn, what have you found the most challenging about doing your talking heads?
That's a great question. I think for me, the challenge is that people think they're really good listeners. And because everyone has this opinion, at least anytime I teach the course or I survey people about their listening skills on a scale of 1 to 10, invariably everyone's a 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10. So when I'm doing my talking heads, I'm trying to get through even to those people who think that they're really good listeners, that there's still things to learn. And without going into the whole thing, one of the key areas that is something for everybody to work on is asking permission, and not just barging into a room or talking to the back of a head or picking up the phone, blah, 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 blah. Like, because if you are listening at an elevated level, it's truly a gift. And so to be able to convey that to people, I use role plays in my talking heads, and I'm hoping that people can at least see the dysfunction and maybe think to themselves, wow, I've been that person, or I've been in that situation, and take something away from it. So to me, that's the most challenging, because I feel I really know the material. And also because I'm producing the show, I have to use all the bells and the whistles while I'm still on the show as well. There's nobody helping me do it. So I would think they're the two things that are most challenging.
Yeah, I can definitely see that that would be a few balls to try and juggle at the same time.
Absolutely. And by the way, to your point, we would love to have more people join us as full-time panelists on this show. So if you're interested, you can reach out to me. I have my information here somewhere. Where is it? Here. And you could also start off as being a guest if you're interested. You can go to our website, usaglobaltv.com, book your session, and you can be a guest. You can try it once or twice and then join us as a full-time panel. It's a lot of fun. So, Mariska, as we're closing out for today, how can people reach out to you, and who would you like to contact you?
Oh, okay. We will go with the contact, or the who to reach out first. So let's let the people know who's got the red shirts on, literally. So you have a red shirt on if you are a specialist wanting to move into leadership, or already have moved into leadership, so it might be a new position for you. Thinking about moving into it, great place too. Or alternatively, if you are a leader and you are moving up in your leadership journey, so maybe you started off as a line manager or a supervisor, and you want to move into a higher middle leadership position, or even further than that, those are the guys that has the shirt on that I am waving the flag for. And how you can reach me is via my email, which is mariska@journey2discover.com, as you will see in the banner below. Or alternatively, you can also reach me via LinkedIn. Drop me a direct message and we can start our conversation. What is it that you will be doing with me? Well, we will be exploring how to enhance your leadership skills with your team, and bring a little bit more humanness into your space, and make it easier for you as a new or growing leader to really lead your team instead of being the specialist that does literally everything. So if you think about communication, difficult conversations, or even delegating tasks, those are all things that we can definitely work on. And that's me.
Thank you so much, Mariska. It's been an absolute pleasure seeing you, and we'll look forward to seeing you later this week, our Thursday, your Friday, when you do your talking heads. So enjoy the rest of your day there in New Zealand.
I will do so. Thank you. And enjoy the last day of July.
Thank you so much, and happy August to you. We'll see you again. Take care. Bye. Thank you, everyone. This show is brought to us in part by Zane Carson Carruth. Zane is the star of a new show that will actually be airing on Thursday. It's called Elegance, Polished Demeanor, and Posh Living. And on this episode, Zane and I interview the vintage Contessa and Times Past. So do join us for that. Thank you again, Zane, for being an official sponsor here at USA Global TV and Radio. Zane is the author of The World's First Tooth Fairy Ever, as well as many other books starring Abella the Tooth Fairy. Let's take a look at her clip, and then we will sign out for tonight. Thank you so much. Bye for now.
Hi, my name is Zane Carson Carruth, and I'm the author of this book, The World's First Tooth Fairy Ever.
Reading is magic. Studies have shown that reading to your children lays the foundation for greater success in life. Reading helps develop language and vocabulary skills. It helps improve memory, and it encourages curiosity and inspires creativity. The benefits are immeasurable, and as a parent, you'll benefit too. In only 10 or 15 minutes a day, you'll be creating warm memories and a bonding experience that will last for years to come. So take time to read to your children. Read them books about things that engage and interest them. Tales of fairies and magic fascinate children, and as everyone knows, the Tooth Fairy is at the top of the list. If your child loves magic, wands, adventure, and what child doesn't, you'll love reading them books from the trademarked series, The World's First Tooth Fairy Ever. Follow along as Abella, the world's first tooth fairy, accidentally starts the tooth fairy tradition. Learn the tricks of being a professional tooth fairy in the book, Abella Starts a Tooth Fairy School. Your child's imagination will soar as you read the adventures of Abella and her magic wand. These wonderful books are available at worldsfirsttoothfairy.com and at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Walmart.